to Left On. My name is Ajoke Yusuf, your host. Thanks for the likes, shares, and comments. If you're new here, Left On is where we dive into captivating stories of African trailblazers who have mastered life unexpected twists from childhood dreams to remarkable achievement. Our spotlight shines on a remarkable individual, Diseye. She leads the people operation at Eden Life. Welcome to the show, Diseye. We're really thrilled to have you here. Thank you for taking our time to be on the show today.
Thank you, Ajoke. I'm glad to be here.
So what was your childhood like and how did it influence your career?
Okay, I think I feel like I had a very normal childhood.
Okay.
Nothing dramatic, nothing traumatic, nothing exciting. I'm the first child. I have two younger brothers. And I grew up in Jos, at the States. So yeah, my childhood was pretty quiet. I was a big reader. I started reading when I was like 7. I started reading novels when I was like 7. My dad used to buy me a lot of books. So when I was younger, as with every other child, I wanted to be a doctor. We admired doctors. So like that changed at some point when I was a teenager. I think I was in like just 2 or something. I started reading John Grisham books. I borrowed one from a friend, The Testament. That was my first John Grisham book. And I really liked it. And I told my dad about it. And so he went and he just bought all of, his books. And I was reading about it. And law looked very interesting. I think a lot of lawyers that have read John Grisham, would say that law seemed very interesting. I was really like into courtroom drama. And it was just how it was presented. It was like this exciting way to live. It was about, lawyers were really intelligent. They were really sharp. They knew how to say the smartest things. They knew how to get out of like the worst situations. So that was attractive to me. And that basically influenced like, oh yeah, I think I want to study law. And I was reading a lot and I used to write. And so Nigerian families, you're not a lawyer, so you should be a lawyer. So yeah, that was the whole law thing. So I went to school and I studied law and it was interesting. It was intense. It's a very intense program. And I enjoyed parts of it. I think that there's obviously a difference between what you imagine it to be and what it is. In your head, you make things up to be very exciting and interesting. And sometimes it's really just a lot of theory. So I studied it in school. I came out of school. I practiced for a year during my youth service. At some point when I was in law school, I knew when I was in uni, I figured out that I didn't want to practice law in the conventional way. And then when I actually started to practice, I realized and I really understood that, this is not for me. At first, I didn't even want to bother practicing at all, right? I was always doing internships with like, companies because I was really fascinated by the corporate world. And so in that time, with the knowledge that I had, I felt like, it would be nice to work in media or just something related to intellectual property because I was still trying to link everything I wanted to do to law somehow. Yeah. So I wanted to just continue in that line because after law school, I was also like interning with a media company and it was very interesting. But, my boss at the time, the legal director, convinced me or he advised me to practice first just so I would know that I was making my decision with all the information that I had and not just like assumption. So I practiced and I realized that it wasn't for me. It was very slow. I'm not a patient person. I like getting closure immediately. And that's something that law does not always give you, right? Yeah. Things take a long time to happen. So it wasn't for me. And so I now decided to go in-house. And, I took my first in-house role. And, it was a joint role. It was a role that, merged HR and legal. And that's when I now, figured out that, HR was something I really enjoyed. And I decided to start learning more about it and go to conferences and meet people. And I just moved right into HR and dumped the legal part. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to bring you back a bit. Could you walk us through how the decision of studying law came about? Now, this is my question. So as a child, we know that, after secondary school, you wanted to be a doctor. You have to go to secondary school. After secondary school, first, just 1 to just 3. There's just this, before you go into senior secondary school, you had to choose either sciences and it's actually what influences the class you go to is as a result of what your junior work, right? Mm-hmm. So were you put in art class or social sciences, or you actually you had everything to go to science class, but you chose to go to art class?
Honestly, I don't really remember. But what I do remember is that before I was in SS1, I already knew I wanted to study law. Because I had started reading these books, right? When I was in like GS1, GS2, and I liked it. So I wanted to study law. I wanted to go to art class. So I didn't have like a moment of confusion. So I can't remember if I was placed in all of them or if I had to choose. All I know is that I was trying art class and I wanted to be in art class because I wanted to study law. And I figured that out before I even wrote like junior work or anything like that.
Okay, so you wrote your JAM and actually applied for law and you did law.
Yeah.
Wow. That's brilliant. So, you worked with the legal firm. Right, you said you intended to them.
No. After I was called to the bar.
Okay.
For my NYSC, I worked in a law firm.
What part of law? What part of
the firm practiced it was general practice. It wasn't too high in litigation, but there was criminal law, criminal litigation, a lot of civil cases, banking law, matrimonial courses. It was pretty general practice. Like it's a lot of law firms in Nigeria. Yeah.
So was it at that same place you started doing the law and HR together and you discovered it?
So, it was youth service, right? And at that point, I was serving. And I was doing some freelance writing on the side to make more money. I decided to be done with that year. So when I was done with youth service, when you're applying for jobs, I wasn't even applying to law firms. I never really applied to work with law firms. I was applying to companies I was trying to get in-house roles, legal associates, legal counsel inside of companies. Yeah. So I never, beyond youth service, I didn't plan to continue practicing. So 3 months after I was done with youth service, I was still working with a law firm. I now got a role that was now legal and HR in-house in an oil and gas servicing company. Yeah.
So you chose to study law in University of Lagos, right?
Yeah, I did.
And what influenced that choice? Was it in Lagos? Why Lagos State University of all schools?
At that time, my family was living in Port Harcourt.
Yeah.
There was no law in Uniport.
Okay.
I had family in Lagos, so it just made sense. It was just the next city where I still had extended family and people. Yeah. So it just made sense to me and to my family to go to uni. That's actually what guided the decision.
Okay, great. Yeah. And you got it. That was really, so you didn't have to wait for JAM. That's impressive. That's quite impressive. Okay, going through your IG page, I noticed that you were quite active as a law student. Being a member of the tax club and Kayode Esho Chambers.
Yeah.
Was studying law something you were passionate about at some point at that time?
I like law. I still like law. I still I'm very interested in, the legal space and all of the different things that happen there. I enjoyed studying law. And I think my extracurricular participation was I just had to be involved. I've always been a doer, sort of. So when I'm in a space, I like to be just involved, right? And beyond just going to class, the Faculty of Law in University of Lagos is a very, what's the word? I want to say inclusive, but I don't think that that's the right word. But I do know that it tries to develop students beyond just academically, right? And so there are all of these chambers, there are all of these societies that you could be a part of that I think really help. It helps just expand our horizons on what is outside and how to. I think it also helps with building soft skills, because at that point you're managing projects, all of those things. I enjoyed that. I like to always have impact when I'm in spaces. I like to be among the movers, right? So that's why I always wanted to also work in corporate. I feel like companies are basically deciding or running the economy, and I always want to be on the pulse. And so, when I was in school, that was the version of it in my head, right? It was being a part of all of these things, societies, chambers, and just learning and being exposed to things beyond just the classroom. That was it. But I've always liked law. I still like it. I still enjoy it. And those things were also separate from just theory, right? It was now learning about things, organizing things, talking about things with people from like other spaces, even beyond just seeing a lab. And that was interesting. So I think I've just always been that kind of person. That's probably why HR is also good for me, because I like to be the person. I like to make things happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for other people. I don't want to just sit down and just be like a participant. Yeah.
You mentioned that you worked somewhere where you had to do HR and legal, and at that point you discovered that you like something about HR. What was in your mind? Like, what was that thing that was informing that decision? And was it a challenging phase for you? How did you emotionally, were you pumped? Just tell us about it. Walk us through that transition, and how did you cope, especially your parent knowing that you studied law and then now you're thinking of going to HR?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like when people ask me these questions, I disappoint them on my answers because I don't know, like there are no dramatic moments in my life. It wasn't challenging at all. It was a job. It was like, oh, if I liked that the work that I was doing was directly affecting the experiences that people had and the quality of their lives, right? So I wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it well, right? I started to understand that because I was also working in a company with like a diverse age range. So it's like you have people that have been working for 30 years, and work is an important part of people's lives, right? What HR does has a direct impact on how people's lives will go. But that's actually, people are spending how many % of their days at work, right? So the things that you do would tie directly to people's fulfillment, to their self-esteem sometimes, right? To their growth. So I felt like that was something that I really wanted to do. And then it also now has direct impact on the company too, right? Whether a company succeeds or fails, it's right in the hands of its people. I just liked, I liked having that kind of significance or power. It's just, it made sense to me, right? And it looked like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. So it wasn't challenging. I don't know. I feel like maybe the move from law to HR might not be, well, it all depends really. I like to not project my own experience on things and speak like in generalities or whatever. But I do think that for me, I didn't find it challenging. I found it interesting. So I started to learn about it. I also think that coming from a legal background sometimes might give some people some sort of advantage because law is very complex. It is extremely complex. So, and its complexity is deal with systems and people.
Yeah.
And people too. And so when you now come into like the corporate space and you're trying to navigate people, maybe some skills there might help. But there are also a lot of skills that are in HR that are not in law at all. I think there's a lot of empathy that you have to be able to build, because the angle that HR interacts with people is completely different from the angle that a lawyer is interacting with people. So it's finding that balance. Mm-hmm. So no, it wasn't challenging. It wasn't scary. As for my parents, I grew up with a lot of autonomy as to things I would do in my life. So it was just, oh yeah, I want to do this. And it made sense, right? It was just cool. They trust me. Yes. And yeah, it was fine. I don't remember, having any particular moments of anxiety around it or fear. Maybe it was also because I knew that I wasn't going to, law was never oh my God. It wasn't like my safe space or anything. So moving away from it did not feel scary at all.
Yeah. So are you saying HR is your safe space now?
I think, right now I've been in it for quite a while, right? A long time now. So I'm really good at it, if I do say so myself. And yes, I think I have been exposed to a lot of things in it. But I don't know. I don't think anywhere is my, I think my brain is my safe space. I do believe that I can do anything that I decide to do. And so even if I decide to do something else, I would figure it out. Law is still sort of I still know a lot of, stuff as regards like corporate law and all of that. So yeah, my brain is my safe space. As long as I think I'm going to be fine.
You'll be safe anywhere.
I'll be safe anywhere. Yeah.
All right. So it's safe to say that what you studied in school, law, actually influenced your decision. So you're more like advocate for the employer.
Yes.
And so it's still in line with what you do. So what you studied actually helped shape your career in.
Oh yes. I don't think that without it, it would have been, well, I don't know, but I do know that what I studied in school definitely has a direct influence on my career path right now. I still feel like a lawyer a lot of the time because I'm still always like having to think about things that could be legal issues. So yeah.
Okay, so but you had to pick up some skills like empathy, right?
Well, I had to pick up actual HR skills, which is, different. One area of law that is very present in HR a lot of times, conflict management, conflict resolution.
Yeah.
That's a big part of every HR professional's role. And if you're a lawyer, if you've practiced law or you've studied law, I think that there are some skills that you come with into that space that make it easier. Yeah. And then there's also like policy formulation, things like that, the actual labor law, employee relations, those things they have like relationships that you get from there. But there are other aspects of HR that you're not getting from law, right? Like the actual core HR things. You're not getting recruitment, talent management, performance management, all of these things are not tied to law. There's still things that you have to learn. Yeah.
So recently you were listed amongst the top 20 disruptive people leaders in Nigeria. How did that make you feel? How, did you validate anything? And what would you say is that thing you did that actually brought you out there, got you listed?
I mean, for how I feel, I was obviously happy. I do think though that my first, the first thing I felt when I got when they reached out to me about it, when I got the email, the first thing I felt was, really me? Am I really? Are you sure? That's
the email for me.
Are you sure this is for me? So yeah, I mean, so that's how I felt like. And then he spoke to me and all of that. And then I just pushed it out of my mind, right? And so the day the list actually came out, at first I was like, oh yay, I was happy. And then I saw the list and the other people. I was not like, and then in processing of scripting, like, are you sure? Among these people, you? But yeah, I mean, all in all, I was happy. Did it validate? I mean, definitely it did. It felt really good, to be recognized in that way with, people that I also respect, immensely in the HR industry.
Yeah.
So that was definitely, it was validating and it was also scary. Where I was validating for what I think I did. I'm not sure. But when disruptive people reached out to me, it was an award that people would nominate people for. And so I was told that a lot of people that had worked with me sent in nominations and talked about all of the different ways I had managed HR and how they felt like, I was doing a really good job. So that was the part of it that was actually very validating, because it felt good to know that the people that I had worked with actually believed that I was good at what I was good at what I do. So that part was extremely validating. And I don't know. I can't point out one thing. I do think that in my career, I've been very intentional about creating the best experiences for people as regards their work. And I think that's somehow that people I'd love to recognize that. And yeah, I mean, they did say that people I had worked with sent it in, so I assume that is. People are with me, yeah. So I don't know.
It was obviously a confirmation. It was obvious that what you were doing was actually touching lives, and maybe the employees.
Touching lives feels quite dramatic. But yeah, something definitely happened right somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. So what would you say is your proudest accomplishment?
Okay, my proudest accomplishment so far. Off the top of my head, and I mean, this is probably recency bias because it just happened. I would say it's the list that you just mentioned, right? Top 20 disruptive people leaders in Nigeria. I think that would definitely be it because it was validating, and to be recognized in that way by my peers, by an awarded body. Yeah, I would say that it is. So far, that probably tops it.
Who was the greatest influence growing up?
I would think like most kids, I'll say my parents.
Okay.
I like I mentioned earlier, right? When I said I didn't have a dramatic childhood, I couldn't point to anything weird or traumatic. Yeah, so I feel like my parents gave me a very stable environment to grow up in, and they always wanted to help me become the best version of like who I am, not who they want me to be, right? So as a child, I liked to read, and once my dad saw that, 'cause I used to take his books and read them, and so he would just start to buy me books. I would borrow a book from a friend at school, and I'll tell him about it, and he'll say, "Oh, who's the author?" And then when I'll come back from school, here's what like 8 of the person's books, right? So if I had an interest, my parents were always encouraging me to, try to be better at it, right? I used to like to write. So my dad would give me writing assignments. My mom would read it and all of that. So I think that they made me very comfortable.
Okay.
They helped me to be able to express myself. My dad used to always want me to be very bold. He would, when I was growing up, my dad, if we were walking on the road or something, and he would always want me to stay on that lane, right? If somebody's coming, let them move. Why are you the one moving? Things like that. He always wanted me to be like that. And so I think that I always felt very safe being who I was. I always felt very safe with my interests. I always felt very encouraged and supported. So if I said, "Oh, this is what I want to do," all I would get is support. I wouldn't get questions. I wouldn't get doubts. I wouldn't get judgments. And I think that all of that makes for just a very safe and stable, upbringing. And I think that also helps me navigate the world with a certain level of confidence as an adult.
That's great. And growing up in Jos again, and then you moved to...
Yeah, Jos was also I think it was a great place to grow up. I think that you would know people that grew up in Jos a lot of the time. We're very calm. There's just this, just a very calm place. It was very lovely. The weather was great. People were nice and polite. So yeah, I do think that I was very lucky with, my childhood and my parents. Yeah.
Can you speak their language?
What language?
Hausa or...
Oh, you mean like... Oh, no, I'm actually very bad at languages. I have been on Duolingo for years. And I continue to feel at it. So I'm very bad at languages. I think the only things I can speak are English and Pidgin. Actually, as a South girl, I represent very well when it comes to Pidgin English. But that's it for me and languages.
Oh, nice. Amazing. So, let's dive into some questions around career, right?
Okay.
How do you find passion in your career paths, and how would you advise someone growing up or thinking about coming into HR, or any career basically, how they can find passion in what they're doing?
I think that, a key way to be passionate about, there's the default passion that comes from maybe like you doing, probably something that you've always wanted to do. There's that. Not everybody has that, right? Not everybody jumps passionately into a career.
Yeah.
I think a lot of more people than not are just doing like, okay, yeah, I studied this in school, or I was looking for a job, I got this role, I can do it, and they're doing it. I think that finding passion, because passion is pretty important. I do think that the best way to do that is to be honest to yourself, ask yourself what your motivations are, and focus on those motivations, right? Why am I doing this? What is the one thing that's keeping me on this path? And then you know, when you focus on that, I think that it gives you a drive. Like you're always working towards, getting more of that thing. So is it money? Very valid. If it's money, then continue to be the best at what you're doing. Continue to find better opportunities within that path. And, you know that you're always actively optimizing for money, right? That's what you're looking for. If it's, fame or status, you face that direction, right? And try to get a career path to bring that, to you. So I do think that finding what your motivations are and focusing on them would help you to continually be driven while being on your career path. Yeah.
Great. So thank you so much. So what are the biggest career mistakes to avoid?
I don't know. This question has, again, there's no one size fits all when it comes to career. And I also don't believe there are career mistakes that are permanently damaging, right? Okay. So you could always recover from whatever mistake happens. I do think that at all times, you should always be sure that you know why you're doing what you're doing. I think that a lot of self-awareness helps with career. Why are you doing this? Like I said about motivations.
Yeah.
Doing things without having a plan or without having any kind of intentionality attached to it could result in a lot of dissatisfaction and unfulfillment. And I believe that if you're on a career path that is not giving you satisfaction or fulfillment, then that's a problem, right? And the only way to avoid that is to always be sure that, okay, this thing that you're trying to achieve is you're getting it through your career path. So I would say that I think that the only mistake I think that people should avoid is just going with vibes, right? Always be intentional about why you're doing what you're doing. Always be sure that you're actually getting value out of what you're doing, value that you want to get. And if you're not getting that, then figure out a way to get it. Because that's the best way to live life, right? I mean, you have to be able to find fulfillment in what you're doing.
Thank you. That's so brilliant. So find what is fulfilling, what you really want to do, and not just live on vibes, right? All right, great. So you're a talent manager. What traits or quality do you see in someone that will make you pick the person? I know you do a lot of, and the standards are high, right? So what are those traits and qualities you look at for a candidate to choose?
I mean, beyond what is laid out there, right? There are job descriptions for everyone. There are requirements that obviously people would look at. Beyond that, I think that particular traits that I have seen in successful employees or candidates that I also tend to look out for is, okay, there's one thing that I want to point out. I am very biased towards people that are trying to prove a point to themselves, right? People that have hunger, that are trying to be the best version of themselves. People that are competitive, not in a negative way, but people that are always wanting to be the best. I always those people are always the most productive people, right? They're not trying to prove anything to you. They take their failures personally. And so before you even get to say, oh, why is this going wrong? They're course correcting because they hold themselves to a very high standard. That trait is something that I try to test for in interviews and just through the hiring process, just to find people like that. Yeah.
Offline, how do you test for that?
Oh, that's what I ask questions about. When we say, what's your practice accomplishment? Things like that. So when you're saying this person is saying this, it's what do they value for themselves? How do they talk about things that they've done in other places? Right? Do they feel personal pride in their achievements? Do they talk about big achievements but still want more out of it? It's just stuff like that.
Okay, so you have to coin the question in such a way that it actually highlights those traits.
No, I mean, it's a hiring process. All the stage of hiring process is aimed at bringing out the best candidates. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you figure out what you want out of your candidates, you find a way of infusing them into the test process.
What advice would you give an average and not so innovative student that is about just leaving the school and is about to enter the real world? What do you think they should avoid? What mistakes should they avoid?
First, I think that they should try to become innovative.
Okay. Very direct.
Yeah. About being average, I think that they should not allow their academic performance define their self-worth, because it could actually be a big blocker. A lot of people would graduate with average results or even poor results. While of course finishing from school with like great results would help you find opportunities a lot faster. If you are now not in that group, I think that the first thing that you need to work on is your own self-esteem, because a lot of times you would cancel yourself. You would even block yourself off from opportunities, even when they're open, just because of your results and because you don't believe that you're good enough. So I think the first thing is to say that, okay, I performed in this way academically. This was why I did this. This is the kind of value I know that I can still bring. If you're able to take courses, right, to learn about stuff, improve your own capacity, build your capacity, do that, get internships and all of that. Just don't allow your academic performance
determine your
abilities. Because a lot of the times it's mostly in your head.
Right.
Most people can do whatever they say their minds to do.
Okay, so ready to expand your capacity, your limits beyond just your results.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So is there any online resources that help students understand various career paths and how they can connect to people in their career path, in their chosen career path?
Yeah.
Okay.
Google and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, very common. You can Google stuff about your chosen career and you will see millions of results. And then you can go on LinkedIn and type, software engineers, and you see them and you can connect to them. A lot of things are not complicated. They're actually just, we're in an age where almost every information that you need is at your fingertips. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So on the final note, I'd like to know, what do you think about a great company culture?
I think that company culture is very sensitive, right? And that's because it is people. People are dynamic. People are unpredictable. People are diverse, right? The one thing that can make your company culture great is to be intentional about making your company culture great. I find that places with bad or toxic culture, it's mostly as a result of people not being intentional enough about making your culture good, right? So what makes culture good is that your people are happy. People are fulfilled. People have their quality of lives improved by the fact that they're working here. People actually wake up and they're not dreading the fact that they're going to work. People don't hate their colleagues, hate their bosses, hate the company, right? And to make all of these things not be a thing in your company is intentionality. First of all, you define who you are as a company. And then you sit down. If you're a young company, even if you're not a young company, you just never had this conversation, you could just have a conversation with your team, right? What kind of culture do you think we have? What kind of culture would you like us to have? And then, together, I say together because a lot of times, it is very important that people are a part of the decision making when it comes to people-related issues and culture. Because when you have buy-in, you have a more cohesive team, right? Instead of so culture is just, it's basically intentionality. What can we do to make this place, an enjoyable experience? What can we do to make your work fulfilling for you? And then actually listening to people when they say what it is that they want, and building systems that would help them grow, help them just have visibility on what their career trajectory is in your company. Help them be able to talk comfortably, right? Just all of these things. Again, I always say it comes down to intentionality. Once you decide that I want my company to have great culture, right? And you sit down with your people and ask them what great culture is to them, and you ask yourself what great culture is to you, you would be able to figure it out. But it always starts from you actually wanting it. Some people don't want it or don't care about it.
Thank you so much. That was great. So first thing is define what culture you want for your company. Get your staff or employees involved in that decision to define like a structure, and then
build systems that will support it.
That's great. Thank you so much. What would you say is your most favorite thing about being in HR and the least favorite about your job?
My favorite thing about being in HR? What's my favorite thing about being in HR?
Sacking people.
Definitely not. I think I would say it's just being able to define what people's experiences at work would be like. Right? I like that as HR, I don't have to. So I can't complain, right? I can't sit down and say, oh, where I work has bad culture because it's my job to set it.
Yeah.
I can't complain that I don't see growth for myself because it is my job to set it. So I like that I have control of that. And I like that I can directly, influence this thing that I'm so passionate about for people's lives. Yes, I like that the work that I do can directly improve the quality of a person's life. That's my favorite part about it.
That's amazing. The least favorite?
My least favorite part about working in HR is...
Gang.
My least favorite part about working in HR is probably, I think that the role, the role of HR is very complex, right? It's very complex. A lot of times we play the middleman, right? And then a lot of times I do believe that the HR role can be very, ignored sometimes. And when I say ignored, I mean that, so HR is very concerned with what's happening with everybody, right? Ensuring that everybody's fine, ensuring that the pulse of the company is great, ensuring that management is fine, ensuring that the company is fine. But HR is just on its own. And this has been a conversation that's been going on in the community for a while, right? It's like, oh, who takes care of HR? Recently there have been a lot of, meetings and conferences about things like this. I know that there was even like a mental health.
HR mixer.
A mixer for HR, because it's actually a thing, right? A lot of things are happening. Being in HR exposes you to a lot of negative energy a lot of the times because, you have to listen to people talk about, stuff that they're going through. You have to fix people's problems. And so sometimes it can just
listen to different kind of stories.
Yeah. And then it's like you're always fixing and, solving people's problems. And then you forget about yours a lot of the times. And then every other person also forgets that, okay, but this person is also an employee here. And they also have a career path. So I think that's the least favorite part of it. I think that it is very self-sacrificial a lot of the time.
Thank you so much. That was really brilliant. So what's the interesting thing you're working on right now? And what would you like to say to my listeners, or your final words? And where can we find you online?
That's 3 questions in one.
Yes.
One interesting thing I'm working on right now, I'm part of a team archiving. We're digitizing we're digitizing old newspapers. And it is super impactful, very significant. We have just recently launched, and so far we have about 5,000 pages that you could just access in Nigerian's history, right? It's very interesting. So, I feel very excited about it, about the kind of impact that it would have in years to come. Yeah. So that's something exciting. You can actually check it out. Academy.
That's great.
Yeah. It's really great.
That's great. I think I saw it recently, and you can either donate a one-time donation.
Oh, yes,
or
please. We need donors. You can, go on archive.ng. You can donate. If you'd also love to volunteer, we have a volunteer pool that you could join and, just help us make this happen. Yeah.
That's a very brilliant one. I saw it. It was really fun. You guys should really check it out. So what are your final thoughts on how can we find you?
Okay, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Diseye Amy Naasin. And yeah, LinkedIn is fine. Then I also have a Twitter account.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so my final words, trying to find happiness in like little things. Life is definitely hard. Mm-hmm. And I do think that those little pockets of happiness that you could get make the difference. So yeah, I think everybody should. I'm in that era. I'm trying to do things that I like. I'm trying to, engage in things that would give me happiness. So I think that everybody should be doing that. So,
happiness and
find happiness. Yes.
Like drinking Coke. Coca-Cola. All right. It's been an interesting session today. Thank you so much, Diseye, for being on the show today. Viewers, I'm going to drop her where you can contact her and also the archiving just in case you want to donate. Really, really great for us to preserve our history. And I really have seen it and it's really amazing. So thank you so much. Please press the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any episode. Thank you so much and have a good day.